How are you guys doing? Today is Monday, March 28th, 2022. I'm James Sims, and for this episode of The Elite, I'm going to review yesterday's Elite matchups and performances from Sunday, March 27th, and of course, I'm going to preview everything that's going on today as we navigate through the world of sports one day at a time. Before I get into that, I'm going to take a quick step back and look at where we are in the calendar year. As we are almost done with March, we are still in the midst of March Madness as we are through with the men's second weekend of basketball and almost through with the women's second weekend. In terms of the men's bracket, all four teams that have made it through to the Final Four have already played both of their games this weekend. And in terms of the women's side, we are halfway through the Elite Eight round as the last two matches will be played today to determine who will go to the Final Four next weekend. Taking a look at what's going on with the NBA, we are nearing the end of the season as the number of games are ticking down and teams are starting to seed themselves out as the playoffs are just around the corner. And of course, with soccer internationally, we are in an international break as teams are trying to qualify for the World Cup this year. With that said, I'm going to start with the men's college basketball bracket, looking at the second day of the Elite Eight after Villanova and Duke were the first two teams to advance to the Final Four on Saturday. The first game that took place yesterday would be the final in the Midwest region between the last remaining one seed, the only one seed to make it to the Elite Eight, the Kansas Jayhawks out of the Big 12, as they face off against the 10 seed Miami Hurricanes out of the ACC. Looking at how these two teams got to the Elite Eight, Kansas would make it out of their first weekend after beating 16 seed Texas Southern by 27 after Texas Southern played in for that matchup. They would win their second matchup against Creighton by 7, as both of those games were in Fort Worth. And in the Sweet 16, Kansas went on to beat 4 seed Providence earlier in the weekend by 5. 10 seed Miami would make it to the Elite Eight after they would play their first two games in Greenville, South Carolina. They would beat 7 seed USC by 2 in the first round before beating 2 seed Auburn by 18 in the second round. And in the Sweet 16, they would beat 11 seed Iowa State by 14 to make it here. In this Elite Eight matchup to see who would face off against Villanova, the 1 seed Kansas Jayhawks would beat the 10 seed Miami Hurricanes 76-50. They would win this matchup by 26 after they outscored Miami by 32 in the second half. Miami was leading 35-29 at the end of the first half. Kansas would outscore Miami 47-15 in the second half to pull off a very big win and clinch a very big Final Four matchup for themselves. On the losing end of this matchup in their final game of the season, the 10 seed Miami Hurricanes were led in scoring by their starting guard Cameron McGusty. Their senior out of Katy, Texas, would go on to finish with 18 points in 36 minutes. He shot 7 for 17 from the field and made all 4 of his free throws. On the winning end of this matchup, the top seed Kansas Jayhawks were led in scoring by the Big 12 Player of the Year, their starting guard Ochai Agbaji. Their senior out of Kansas City, Missouri, would go on to finish with 18 points, 5 rebounds, and 4 steals. All of this in 34 minutes. He shot 8 for 12 from the field, and he made both of his 3-pointers. With this win, the top seed Kansas Jayhawks in the Midwest region, out of the Midwest region, will advance to the Final Four. And on Saturday, they will face off against the 2 seed Villanova Wildcats, who came out of the South region. That game will be in New Orleans, Louisiana. With this loss, the 10 seed Miami Hurricanes out of the ACC will finish their 2021-22 season with a 26-11 record. Taking a look at the third ACC team to play in the Elite Eight, the 8 seed North Carolina Tar Heels would face off against the 15 seed St. Peter's Peacocks out of the Metro Atlantic Athletic Conference in this Elite Eight matchup for the East Region Final. Looking at how these teams got here, 8 seed North Carolina made it out of their first weekend in Fort Worth by beating 9 seed Marquette by 32 in the first round. They would then go on to beat top seed Baylor by 7 in overtime in the second round to make it out. In the Elite Eight, they would beat 4 seed UCLA by 7 to make it here. And looking at how St. Peter's would make it here, they would go on to upset the 2 seed Kentucky Wildcats in the first round, which is why everyone was obsessed with them after that point. In the second round, they would beat 7 seed Murray State by 10 to make it to the Sweet 16. And in the Sweet 16, earlier in the weekend, they would beat 3 seed Purdue to make it here. And in this Elite Eight matchup, to see who would face off against Duke in the Final Four, the 8 seed North Carolina Tar Heels would end up beating the 15 seed St. Peter's Peacocks by 20. They won it 69-49 after they outscored St. Peter's by 19, doubling their output 38-19 in the first half. On the losing end of this matchup, in their final game of the season, the Peacocks were led in scoring by their forward off the bench. Fousseni Drame, their junior out of Mali, would finish with 12 points and 7 rebounds in 23 minutes. He shot 4 for 8 from the field, 1 for 2 from 3, and he made 3 of his 4 free throws on the night. On the winning end of this matchup, the 8th seed North Carolina Tar Heels were led in scoring by their starting forward, Armando Bacot. Their junior out of Richmond, Virginia, would go on to finish with 20 points, 22 rebounds, and 2 blocks in 35 minutes. He shot 8 for 15 from the field on the night. With this win, the 8th seed North Carolina Tar Heels out of the ACC will advance to the 2022 Final Four, where they will face off against their longtime rival, the 2 seed Duke Blue Devils, in Coach K's final season. This is the first time that Duke and North Carolina have ever faced off in a Final Four. This will be the second Final Four matchup at 8:49 on Saturday. And with this loss, the 15 seed St. Peter's Peacocks out of the Metro Atlantic Athletic Conference will finish their 2021 season with a 22-12 record. As that is how their season will come to an end, as the 4 teams that have been slotted for the Final Four have made it through. As, like I said earlier, Villanova will face off against Kansas first on Saturday, and then 2 seed Duke will face off against 8 seed UNC. Taking a look at what happened in the first couple matchups of the Elite Eight on the women's side, starting off with the championship or the final in the Greensboro region, the 1 seed South Carolina Gamecocks would face off against the 10 seed Creighton Blue Jays. Looking at how these two teams got to the Elite Eight, first seed South Carolina would play their first 2 games on their home court in Columbia, South Carolina. They would beat 16 seed Howard after they played in to make this game. They beat 16 seed Howard by 58 points. They would then go on to beat 8 seed Miami by 16. Once they made it off their home court, they would beat 5th seed North Carolina by 8 to make it to this round. 10 seed Creighton played their first 2 games in Iowa City, Iowa, as they beat 7 seed Colorado by 10 in the first round before they beat 2 seed Iowa by 2. They would then go on to the Sweet 16, and in Greensboro, they would beat 3 seed Iowa State by 8 to make it to this Elite Eight matchup. In this Elite Eight matchup, South Carolina would, the very first of the 4 1 seeds that would play in the Elite Eight, would go on to beat the 10 seed Creighton Blue Jays to be the first team in the Final Four. South Carolina would win this game 80-50. They won it by 30 after they outscored Creighton 46-25 by 21 points in the first half. And on the losing end of this matchup, in their final matchup of the season, the 10 seed Creighton Blue Jays were led in scoring by their starting guard, Lauren Jensen. Their sophomore from Lakeville, Michigan, would go on to finish with 12 points in 26 minutes. She shot 5 for 15 from the field and made her only free throw. On the winning end of this matchup, the top seed Gamecocks were led in scoring by their starting forward, Aaliyah Boston. Their junior from the Virgin Islands would go on to finish with 19 points and 7 rebounds in 28 minutes, as she shot 7 for 9 from the field. South Carolina starting forward Victoria Saxton, their senior from Roane, Georgia, will go on to finish with 11 points and 11 rebounds. She did all this in 21 minutes. She shot 3 for 6 from the field and 5 for 6 from the foul line. With this win, the top seed South Carolina Gamecocks will be the team that represents the Greensboro region in the Final Four, as they will face off against the winner between Louisville and Michigan in the Wichita region. But they are the first of the 4 1 seeds to make it through, as they have a 33-2 record at this point in time. With this loss, the 10 seed Creighton Blue Jays out of the Big East will finish their 2021-22 season with a 23-10 record, as they were officially the 61st team eliminated from this bracket. And then taking a look specifically at the final matchup in the Spokane region, the 1 seed Stanford Cardinal would face off against the 2 seed Texas Longhorns. Looking at how these two teams got to the Elite Eight in the first place, 1 seed Stanford played their first 2 games at home in Palo Alto. They would beat 16 seed Montana State by 41, and then they would then go on to beat 8 seed Kansas by 26 to make it to the Sweet 16. They would beat 4 seed Maryland by 6 earlier in the weekend, and then looking at 2 seed Texas, they would make it through their first weekend on their home court in Austin by beating 15 seed Fairfield by 18 in the first half. They would then go on to beat 7 seed Utah by 22 in the second round. Once they made it to the Sweet 16, they would go on to beat 6 seed Ohio State by 3. And in this in this Elite Eight match to determine who would make it to the Final Four, the 1 seed Stanford Cardinal will go on to beat the 2 seed Texas Longhorns to be the second 1 seed to make it to the Final Four. Stanford will win this game by 9 after they outscored Texas by 9 following the first quarter. The first quarter was pretty dead even. Stanford outscored Texas by 6 in the second half. On the losing end of this matchup, the second seed Texas Longhorns were led in scoring by their starting guard, Joanne Allen Taylor. In her final game of the season, the senior out of Houston, Texas, would go on to finish with 15 points and she would go on to foul out in 39 minutes. She shot 5 for 11 from the field and a perfect 4 for 4 from the foul line. On the winning end of this matchup, the top seed Stanford Cardinal were led in scoring by their starting guard, Lexi Hull. Their starting senior out of Spokane, Washington, would go on to drop 20 points in front of her home crowd. She would do all this in 30 minutes as she shot 7 for 14 from the field, 2 for 4 from 3. She would go on to shoot 4 for 6 from the foul line as well. Stanford's starting guard, Haley Jones, their junior from Santa Cruz, would go on to finish with 18 points, 12 rebounds, and 2 blocks, all in 40 minutes, as she shot 4 for 11 from the field and 10 for 11 from the foul line. With this win, the top seed Stanford Cardinal they will represent the Spokane region in the Final Four. They will face off against the winner of the Bridgeport matchup between top seed North Carolina State and 2 seed UConn, as the Final Four will be taking place in Minneapolis, as the Final Four matches will be taking place on Friday. So that's what that's looking like. And with this loss, the 2 seed Texas Longhorns out of the Big 12 will finish their 2021-22 season with a 29-7 record. As of right now, there are 6 teams left competing for the title. Taking a look at the last 2 matchups to determine who is going to be going on to the Final Four. Starting at 7 o'clock on ESPN in Total Mortgage Arena in Bridgeport, Connecticut, the 1 seed NC State Wolfpack from the region are going to face off against the 2 seed UConn Huskies, who are actually playing in their home state. Looking at how these 2 teams got here, top seed North Carolina State would make it through the first weekend off their home court in Raleigh, North Carolina, by beating 16 seed Longwood State by 28 after Longwood State had to play in for this matchup. In the second matchup, NC State would beat Kansas State by 32 to make it to the Sweet 16. In the Sweet 16, they would go on to beat 5 seed Notre Dame in order to make it to this round. And then looking at how UConn made it, and they would go on to win their first 2 games in Storrs, Connecticut, and their home court at UConn. They beat 15 seed Mercer by 45 before they beat 7 seed UCF by 5 in the second round. They went on to beat 3 seed Indiana by 17 in the Sweet 16 as they played that game in Bridgeport, Connecticut. They have not left the state. It could be very possible that they make it to the Final Four without leaving the state, which would be pretty impressive. This matchup will be the first of 2. The winner of this matchup will face off against Stanford in the Final Four, the 1 seed coming out of Spokane. And then in Wichita, the 4th 1 seed in this Elite Eight, the Louisville Cardinals, are going to face off against the 3rd seed Michigan Wolverines. Looking at how these teams got here, 1st seed Louisville played their first 2 games in their home court in Louisville, Kentucky. They beat 16 seed Albany by 32. They would then go on to beat 9 seed Gonzaga by 9 in the second round. In the Sweet 16 in Wichita, Kansas, they would go on to beat 4 seed Tennessee earlier in the weekend. Looking at Michigan's path to the Elite Eight, they would win their first 2 games in their home court in Ann Arbor. They beat 14 seed American by 35 points before they beat 11 seed Villanova by 15. In the Sweet 16, they beat 10 seed South Dakota by 3 points in order to make it here. The winner of this Elite Eight matchup will face off against 1st seed South Carolina out of Greensboro. Looking at where we are right now, it is very possible that we have a Final Four with all 1 seeds, but at the same time, we just have to let the games play themselves out to see if we're actually there. Both of these games are going to be on ESPN, and by the end of today, we will have both Final Fours set and ready. Taking a look at what's going on in the NBA now, starting off in Detroit, the Detroit Pistons hosted the New York Knicks. The Knicks would go on to beat the Pistons 104-102. They went on to win this game by 2 after they outscored Detroit by 12 in the first quarter. On the losing end of this matchup, the Detroit Pistons were led in scoring by their starting power forward out of Duke, Marvin Bagley III. He finished with 27 points and 7 rebounds in 35 minutes. He shot 11 for 14 from the field, 1 for 2 from 3, and 4 for 5 from the foul line. Their starting center, Isaiah Stewart, will go on to finish with 10 points and 10 rebounds in 35 minutes. He shot 4 for 6 from the field and 2 for 3 from 3. On the winning end of this matchup, the New York Knicks were led in scoring by their starting shooting guard out of Duke, R.J. Barrett. Barrett finished with 21 points and 9 rebounds in 36 minutes. He shot 7 for 18 from the field and 6 for 7 from the free throw line. Their starting power forward, Julius Randle, finished with 20 points, 7 rebounds, 5 assists, and 2 steals in 31 minutes. He went on to shoot 7 for 18 from the field, 2 for 5 from 3 as well. With this win, the New York Knicks are now 33-42. That is currently the 5th worst record in the Eastern Conference. They've now won their last 3 games, and they've won 6 of their last 10. At this moment, the Knicks have 7 games left in their schedule as they sit 4.5 games behind the 10th seed Atlanta Hawks outside of the Eastern Conference play-in picture looking in. With this loss, the Detroit Pistons are now 20-55. They are now tied with the Orlando Magic for the worst record in the Eastern Conference. They are also tied with the Houston Rockets. That's a 3-way tie for the worst record in the NBA. The Pistons have now lost their last 2 games. They've lost 8 of their last 10. As the Pistons have 7 games left in their schedule, they are currently sitting 17.5 games behind the 10th place Atlanta Hawks outside of the Eastern Conference playoff picture. As of now, the Detroit Pistons are one of 3 teams alongside the Indiana Pacers and the Orlando Magic who have failed to qualify for playoff contention this year. Now, taking a look at what happened in Boston, the Boston Celtics hosted the Minnesota Timberwolves. The Celtics beat the Timberwolves 134-112. They would win this matchup by 22 after they outscored the Timberwolves by 19 in the second quarter. On the losing end of this matchup, the Timberwolves were led in scoring by their elite small forward Anthony Edwards. He would go on to finish with 24 points, 5 rebounds, 6 assists, and 5 turnovers in 37 minutes. He shot 9 for 16 from the field, 5 for 9 from 3, and he went on to make his only free throw on the night. On the winning end of this matchup, the hometown Boston Celtics were led in scoring by their elite starting small forward, Jason Tatum. Tatum finished with 34 points, 5 rebounds, and 6 assists in 34 minutes. Tatum will go on to shoot 12 for 21 from the field, 5 for 11 from 3, and a perfect 5 for 5 from the foul line. Their starting shooting guard, Jaylen Brown, finished with 31 points and 10 rebounds in 35 minutes. He shot 12 for 20 from the field, 3 for 5 from 3, and a perfect 4 for 4 from the foul line. Their starting center, Robert Williams, will go on to finish with 13 points and 10 rebounds in 24 minutes. He shot 6 for 7 from the field, and he made his only free throw. With this win, the Boston Celtics are now 47-28. That is the best record in the Eastern Conference win percentage-wise, as they are tied with the Miami Heat for that honor. They have won their last 6 games. Their 6-game winning streak is the longest active winning streak in the Eastern Conference. Only the Phoenix Suns have a longer active winning streak at the moment. Sitting alongside the Miami Heat, they are sitting half a game ahead of the 2-way tie of the Milwaukee Bucks and the Philadelphia 76ers for the 3rd best record in the East. They are currently sitting 4.5 games ahead of the 6th-place Toronto Raptors, as the Celtics currently have 7 games left in their schedule. They are sitting 9.5 games ahead of the 10th place Atlanta Hawks, to give you a sense of where they're sitting. They have clinched at least the top 7 spots in the East for right now. With this loss, the Minnesota Timberwolves are now 43-33. That is the 7th best record in the Western Conference. They've lost 4 of their last 10 games. Within the Western Conference playoff picture, they are sitting a game and a half behind the 6th-place Denver Nuggets. They are also sitting 6.5 games ahead of the 8th-place Los Angeles Clippers. With 6 games left in their schedule, the Timberwolves are sitting 18.5 games behind the 1st-place Phoenix Suns. The highest seed that they can achieve at this moment is probably the 3rd best record in the East from where they are. Taking a look at what happened in the nation's capital, the Washington Wizards hosted the Golden State Warriors. The Wizards would go on to beat the Golden State Warriors 123 to 115. The Wizards won this matchup by 8 after outscoring the Warriors by 11 in the first 3 quarters. And on the losing end of this matchup, the Warriors would be led in scoring by their starting shooting guard, Jordan Poole. Poole finished with 26 points, 6 rebounds, and 3 steals in 40 minutes. He shot 8 for 25 from the field and 9 for 11 from the foul line. Their elite starting shooting guard out of Washington State, Klay Thompson, finished with 25 points, 5 rebounds, and 3 assists in 37 minutes. He shot 10 for 22 from the field and 5 for 13 from 3. There's all-star starting small forward Andrew Wiggins finished with 23 points in 35 minutes. He shot 8 for 14 from the field and 7 for 10 from the free throw line. Their small forward off the bench, Otto Porter Jr. finished with 14 points and 11 rebounds in 27 minutes. He shot 5 for 7 from the field, 1 for 2 from 3, and he would go on to shoot a perfect 3 for 3 from the foul line. Their all-star starting power forward Draymond Green would finish with 7 points, 5 rebounds, 6 assists, and 3 steals in 26 minutes. He shot 2 for 6 from the field, and he made all 3 of his free throws. On the winning end of this matchup, the hometown Washington Wizards were led in scoring by their starting small forward Corey Kispert. Their rookie out of Gonzaga finished with 25 points in 41 minutes. He shot 9 for 12 from the field, 6 for 9 from 3, and he made his only free throw on the day. Their starting center Kristaps Porzingis finished with 23 points, 9 rebounds, and 6 assists in 31 minutes. He shot 6 for 21 from the field and 10 for 11 from the free throw line. Their starting shooting guard out of Georgia, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, finished with 22 points and 2 blocks in 31 minutes. He would go on to shoot a perfect 8 for 8 from the field. He shot 3 for 3 from 3, and he shot a perfect 3 for 3 from the foul line. With this win, the Washington Wizards are now 32-42. That is the 4th worst record in the Eastern Conference. They've now won their last 2 games, and they've only won 3 of their last 10 games. As the Wizards currently have 8 games left in their schedule, they are sitting 5 games behind the 10th place Atlanta Hawks out east, as they are still eligible for at least a play-in spot at this moment. With this loss, the Golden State Warriors are now 48-27. That is the 3rd best record in the Western Conference and the 3rd best record in the NBA for that matter. They've lost their last 2 games, and they've lost 5 of their last 10. In the Western Conference playoff picture, they are currently sitting 4 games behind the 2nd place Memphis Grizzlies. They are sitting 2 games ahead of the 4th place Dallas Mavericks. With 7 games left in their schedule, they are trailing the Western Conference leading Phoenix Suns by 13 games in the conference. And taking a look at what happened now in Phoenix, speaking of the Suns, the NBA leaders hosted the Philadelphia 76ers. The Suns would beat the Sixers 114-104. The Suns won this game by 10 after they outscored the Sixers by 9 in the third and by 14 for the second half as a whole, to overcome their 4-point deficit at the half. On the losing end of this matchup, the Philadelphia 76ers were led in scoring by their elite starting center, Joel Embiid. Embiid finished with 37 points, 15 rebounds, 3 assists, 3 steals, and 2 blocks in 38 minutes. He shot 14 for 27 from the field, 1 for 5 from 3, and 8 for 12 from the foul line. Their elite starting shooting guard, James Harden, finished with 14 points, 7 rebounds, and 9 assists in 39 minutes. He shot 2 for 11 from the field, 2 for 5 from 3, and a perfect 8 for 8 from the foul line. On the winning end of this matchup, the hometown Phoenix Suns were led in scoring by their elite starting shooting guard, Devin Booker. Booker finished with 35 points, 2 rebounds, and 2 assists in 35 minutes. He shot 13 for 22 from the field, 3 for 5 from 3, and 6 for 8 from the foul line. Their elite starting point guard, Chris Paul, finished with 19 points, 4 rebounds, and 14 assists in 36 minutes. He shot 9 for 15 from the field, and he made 1 of his 3 three-point attempts. Their starting center and former number 1 overall pick from the state, DeAndre Ayton, finished with 14 points and 12 rebounds in 31 minutes. He shot 5 for 8 from the field and 4 for 6 from the foul line. With this win, the Phoenix Suns are now 61-14. That is the best record in the NBA, as they're the only team that has won at least 60 games this season. They've won their last 8 games, which is the longest active winning streak in the NBA. They've won 9 of their last 10 games. As the Phoenix Suns have 7 games left in their schedule, they sit 9 games ahead of the second place Memphis Grizzlies. The Phoenix Suns have already clinched the best record in the Western Conference, as they are slated to face off against the second team that comes out of the play-in. They are currently sitting 29 and a half games ahead of the 10th place Los Angeles Lakers at the moment. With this loss, the Philadelphia 76ers are 46-28. They are now tied with the defending champs Milwaukee Bucks for the third best record in the Eastern Conference. They've lost 4 of their last 10 games. At the moment, sitting alongside the Milwaukee Bucks, they both sit half a game behind the Boston Celtics and the Miami Heat, who are tied for the best record. Yes, I'm saying that all to say that the top 4 teams in the East are separated by half a game at the moment. The Sixers are sitting 3 games ahead of the 5th place Chicago Bulls, and as the 76ers have 8 games left in their schedule, that's just currently where they're sitting at the moment. As they still have yet to fully clinch a for-sure playoff spot that isn't in the play-in, but they've already clinched at least a play-in spot. Taking a look now at what happened in New Orleans, the Pelicans hosted the Los Angeles Lakers. The Pelicans would go on to beat the Lakers 116-108. They would win this matchup by 8 after they outscored the Lakers by 12 in the fourth quarter. They outscored the Lakers by 16 in the third. They outscored the Lakers by 28 in the second half to overcome their 20-point deficit at halftime. On the losing end of this matchup, the Los Angeles Lakers were led in scoring by their goated starting small forward, LeBron James. The 4-time NBA Finals MVP would go on to finish with 39 points, 9 rebounds, and 5 assists in 42 minutes. He shot 14 for 27 from the field, 7 for 13 from 3, and 4 for 6 from the foul line. Their goated starting point guard, Russell Westbrook, finished with 18 points, 7 rebounds, and 6 assists in 32 minutes. He shot 8 for 15 from the field and 2 for 5 from 3. Their shooting guard off the bench out of Kentucky, Malik Monk, finished with 23 points and 6 assists in 29 minutes. He shot 9 for 17 from the field, and he would go on to shoot a perfect 3 for 3 from the foul line. On the winning end of this matchup, the New Orleans Pelicans on the home side were led in scoring by their elite starting small forward out of Duke, Brandon Ingram. Ingram finished with 26 points, 7 rebounds, and 5 assists in 26 minutes. He shot 10 for 17 from the field and 6 for 7 from the free throw line. Their shooting guard off the bench, Trey Murphy III, finished with 21 points in 25 minutes. He shot 7 for 12 from the field, 4 for 7 from 3, and a perfect 3 for 3 from the foul line. The Pelicans starting center, Jonas Valanciunas, finished with 19 points and 12 rebounds in 37 minutes. He shot 7 for 13 from the field and 5 for 6 from the free throw line. With this win, the New Orleans Pelicans are now 32-43. That is the 9th best record in the Western Conference, as they've won 5 of their last 10. In the Western Conference play-in picture, they are sitting 4 games behind the 8th place Los Angeles Clippers. With this win, they are now sitting half a game over the now 10th place Los Angeles Lakers. As the Pelicans have 7 games left in their schedule, they are currently sitting 29 games behind the Western Conference leading Phoenix Suns. With this loss, the Los Angeles Lakers are now have the 10th best record in the Western Conference. They've now lost their last 2 games. They've lost 7 of their last 10. In this Western Conference play-in picture, they sit half a game behind the 9th place New Orleans Pelicans. They sit a game ahead of the San Antonio Spurs, the first team on the outside of the picture looking in. With 8 games left in their schedule, the Los Angeles Lakers sit 29 and a half games behind the Western Conference leading Phoenix Suns, as their season is literally hanging on by a thread now. Jumping out to Brooklyn, the Brooklyn Nets hosted the Charlotte Hornets. The Hornets would beat the Nets 119-110. The Hornets won this game by 9 after they outscored the Nets by 8 in the third quarter. They were going to outscore the Nets by 5 in the fourth, so they outscored them by 13 in the second half to overcome their halftime deficit. On the losing end of this matchup, the hometown Brooklyn Nets were led in scoring by their goated starting power forward, Kevin Durant. He finished with 27 points, 8 rebounds, 7 assists, and 2 steals in 42 minutes. He shot 9 for 24 from the field, 3 for 11 from 3, and he made all 6 of his free throws. Their starting center, Andre Drummond, finished with 20 points, 17 rebounds, 3 steals, and 3 blocks, all in 31 minutes. He shot 7 for 12 from the field. Their elite starting point guard, Kyrie Irving, finished with 16 points, 2 rebounds, 11 assists, and 2 blocks in 41 minutes. He shot 6 for 22 from the field. He shot 1 for 9 from 3, and he shot 3 for 4 from the foul line. On the winning end of this matchup, the the Charlotte Hornets were led in scoring by their elite starting point guard and first-time All-Star LaMelo Ball. He went on to finish with 33 points, 7 rebounds, 9 assists, and 3 steals in 37 minutes. He shot 10 for 21 from the field. He shot 7 for 12 from 3 and 6 for 8 from the free throw line. Their starting small forward, Miles Bridges, would go on to finish with 24 points and 8 rebounds in 38 minutes. He shot 9 for 24 from the field, 3 for 6 from 3, and of course, he would shoot 3 for 6 from the foul line. Their starting power forward, PJ Washington, would finish with 18 points, 11 rebounds, and 5 assists in 31 minutes. He shot 8 for 12 from the field and 2 for 3 from 3. With this win, the Charlotte Hornets are 39-36. That is the 8th best record in the Eastern Conference, as they've now won their last 2 games. They've won 7 of their last 10. In the Eastern Conference playoff picture, they are tied with the Brooklyn Nets for the 8th best record in the conference. They are sitting 2.5 games behind the 7th place Cleveland Cavaliers, and they're also sitting a game and a half ahead of the 10th place Atlanta Hawks at the bottom of the playoff play-in picture. They are trailing the Boston Celtics and the Miami Heat by 8 games in the conference, and so are the Nets. With the same record at 39-36, the Nets have lost 3 of their last 10 games. Taking a look at what happened in Dallas, the Dallas Mavericks hosted the Utah Jazz. The Mavericks are going to beat the Jazz 114-100. They won this game by 14 after they outscored the Jazz by 7 in the second quarter and then by 12 in the third. They would outscore them by 19 in the middle 2 quarters. On the losing end of this matchup, the Utah Jazz would be led in scoring by their small forward off the bench, Rudy Gay. He finished with 18 points and 8 rebounds in 23 minutes. He shot 8 for 14 from the field and 2 for 5 from 3. On the winning end of this matchup, the hometown Dallas Mavericks were led in scoring by their elite starting shooting guard out of Slovenia, Luka Doncic. Doncic finished with 32 points, 10 rebounds, and 5 assists in 33 minutes. He shot 11 for 21 from the field, 4 for 7 from 3. He would go on to shoot 6 for 9 from the free throw line. Their starting small forward, Reggie Bullock, would go on to finish with 23 points in 35 minutes. He shot 8 for 12 from the field and 7 for 11 from 3. Their starting point guard out of Villanova, Jalen Brunson, finished with 22 points, 10 rebounds, and 5 assists in 32 minutes. He shot 7 for 15 from the field, 2 for 4 from 3. He would go on to shoot a perfect 6 for 6 from the foul line. With this win, the Dallas Mavericks are now 46-29. That is the 4th best record in the Western Conference. They've won 6 of their last 10 games. In the Western Conference playoff picture, they are currently sitting 2 games behind the 3rd place Golden State Warriors. They are sitting a game ahead of the 5th place Utah Jazz. With 7 games left in their schedule, they are currently sitting 15 games behind the Western Conference leading Phoenix Suns. With this loss, the Utah Jazz are now 45-30. That is currently the 5th best record in the Western Conference, as they've now lost their last 4 games. Only the Los Angeles Clippers have a longer active losing streak in the Western Conference. The Jazz have lost 6 of their last 10 games. In the Western Conference playoff picture, they are sitting a game behind the 4th place Dallas Mavericks. They're sitting a game ahead of the 6th place Denver Nuggets. And as the Jazz have 7 games left in their schedule, they are sitting 16 games behind the Phoenix Suns. The highest seed they can aspire for is possibly the 3rd seed in the West at this moment. That's what the NBA is looking like following these matchups, and we are slowly inching through the NBA one day at a time. Taking a look at what's going on today on Monday as we cycle through another week. The prime time matchup will be on 8 o'clock at NBA TV as the 2 and 3 seeds in the West will face off. The Memphis Grizzlies have the 2nd best record in the West, having won their last 4 games in 8 of their last 10. They're going to host a Golden State Warriors team who's lost their last 2 and they've lost 5 of their last 10. At this moment, the Warriors are sitting 4 games behind the Memphis Grizzlies, as it looks like the Grizzlies may run away with the 2nd seed in the West, as the Grizzlies are the only team other than the Suns that have clinched a playoff spot this year. Looking at the games that aren't on prime time, at 7 o'clock, the Charlotte Hornets are going to host the Denver Nuggets. At 7 o'clock, the Cleveland Cavaliers are going to host the Orlando Magic. At 7 o'clock, the Indiana Pacers are going to host the Atlanta Hawks in Gainbridge Fieldhouse. At 7:30, the Miami Heat, who are tied for the best record in the East, are going to host the Sacramento Kings in FTX Arena. At 7:30, the New York Knicks are going to host the Chicago Bulls in the Madison Square Garden. At the same time, at 7:30, the Toronto Raptors are going to host the Boston Celtics, who are tied with the Heat for the best record in the East. At 8 o'clock, the Houston Rockets, who are tied for the worst record in basketball, are going to host the San Antonio Spurs. And then at 10 o'clock, the Portland Trail Blazers are going to host the Oklahoma City Thunder. Taking a look at what happened with soccer yesterday, starting off before we leave this country, the United States was able to beat Panama 5-0 as it got a goal from its young forward who plays for Chelsea, Christian Pulisic, and sprinkled in amongst his goals between his first and second goals. Paul Arriola would score U.S.'s second goal, and then Jesus Ferreira would score the third. And then after U.S. scored their 5, Panama scored their only goal. With this win, U.S. is alongside Mexico 3 points behind Canada. I believe the U.S.'s next win would clinch a spot for them into the World Cup. Canada was also able to pull off a big win versus Jamaica 4-0, and even Mexico was able to pull off a 1-0 win versus Honduras, and a very big win as their goal came from Edson Alvarez. Very big win for Mexico there. And then looking at what was going on outside of that, nothing much else outside of that, but taking a look at what's going on today as we have more international friendlies along the way. The only big international friendly that's going to be taking place today will be between Slovenia and Belgium. And once all of today's exhibitions and matchups are done, I'm going to come back tomorrow on Tuesday, March 29th for another episode. And until then, I want to thank everyone once again. I also want to thank the ESPN, the NCAA, the NBA, and FIFA websites for giving me all the facts and figures that I need. And once, like I said, I'm going to come back with more tomorrow once everything's done today. I want to thank everyone for listening 36 minutes of this piece. And I do apologize if I did butcher names on the way. I do plan on eventually getting better with those. But I want to thank everyone for their patience. I do hope all is well. And I'll catch you with more tomorrow. Thanks for listening, and peace out.